Welcome to the show, everybody. Yes, in fact, you do look lovely, Dad. And you too, Mom. Say hello to the audience.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
So that is an imitation of my godchild, Paulina. Hello. All right, so here we are today talking about a rather difficult subject, but if I was to really think what could maybe help somebody else, it would be to share my own experience with my own suicide attempt, and then you get to hear from my parents what that was like. So we're having hard conversations during Suicide Prevention Month, and we're coming down to the end of the month. Why not end it with a bang with Mom and Dad, right? Now, Dad, you're still chewing gum.
No, I'm not.
You're going to get in trouble. You don't want to get in
No,
trouble
I'm not.
from your daughter.
I'm not chewing gum.
Okay, good. So listen here. All right, so just to give everybody a little bit of background on the issue at hand, I am a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. I'm sober by the grace of God, 26 years on this lovely young lady's birthday. My mother, August 11th, 1994 was the day, not the day she was born, but the day I got sober. Although you look 26, Mom.
Oh, thanks, Sharon. Put your glasses on now. You're getting older, you know, you need glasses.
Those bad boys on. So I want to just create a narrative here.
Now, how old do I look?
Yeah, well, not 26, Mom. So I can't. My Kate Spade glasses. I only wear Kate Spade because she died by suicide, and we want to represent people as much as possible that are struggling with depression and all the things that lead to the unfortunate incidents of suicide and all of the wreckage that it leaves behind. So I only suffered from depression when I stopped using drugs and alcohol, which I don't think enough people talk about, how hand in hand addiction and depression and suicidal ideation is. So that's why I'm talking about it today with my parents. And it is not an easy conversation to have with my parents because the thought of me leaving this earth and then leaving them with all of that wreckage is heartbreaking today still, all these years later. So to imagine what it must be like for people that are currently still suffering the loss of a child, a husband, a wife, a mother, an aunt, an uncle, a brother or a sister is really, it's just devastating. So I wanted to talk about what it was like for my parents so that hopefully we could help somebody out there today. So I attempted suicide when I was, I don't know, I think I was 19, Mom?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. And listen, I'm not saying I was choosing the best way to get out of the earth, which is what I was trying to do. I was trying to leave the earth. I chose Tylenol PMs. So I thought if I took an entire bottle of Tylenol PMs, that would be enough. And I did not write a note. I did not do a lot of the things that a lot of people do. I was not giving away mementos. I was doing only one thing that I don't think anybody noticed in the house, which was hiding pictures of myself. Did you notice that, Mom and Dad?
No.
Because we have so many pictures. How could you?
Yeah.
So, so it didn't work. I remember being in my bedroom vomiting, and it was water mostly. And I went into my mom and I told her, what did I tell you, Mom? I don't even remember.
Well, you took me by the hand and you walked me into your bedroom and you held my two hands and brought me down to my knees, and you were on your knees, and you said, Mom, I took pills.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what kind of pills? And you said, Tylenol PM. Now at the time, if she had said some kind of narcotic, I probably would have freaked out. But I thought Tylenol PM, they should be able to help her. I said, okay, we're going to ride over to St. I said, that's where I worked. So we got over there. They brought her in right away. And I worked there, so I knew the staff. So they brought her in right away. And they pumped her stomach. And
So-
she threw everything up.
I drank charcoal.
Charcoal, yeah.
Yeah, which, you know, was the choice.
Oh, yeah, they gave you charcoal, and that brought it up. They didn't pump you.
Right. So I don't have, I only recall being in the hospital, and I remember the nurse saying, was this an accident? And I said yes, but that was not the truth, because I already felt bad for a multitude of reasons. Number one, it didn't work. Number two, I'm now with my mom at the hospital that she works in, telling everybody that I have attempted suicide. And I was too ashamed to admit that that's what I was trying to do. So I said it was an accident, and I'm pretty sure that was the story that continued, that it wasn't an actual attempt to end my life, but it was. Poor attempt at that, but it was. So I remember one more thing about that, and Mom, you will, I'm looking at Dad with his faces. No, I know you're not Dad. Maybe it's just your face, that's why. We are Irish, so, you know, this is how we hide most painful things, through humor. So I do remember going to Peninsula counseling place in Hewlett. And I remember you crying to me in the car about how horrible it would be if I wasn't on Earth, especially because I was the only girl, and you had grown up with 12 brothers, and you only, you have my older brother and my younger brother, and, you know, to have another girl in the family was a big deal. So I do remember that. Do you remember that, Mom?
Vaguely, Sharon. I think I blacked out. I think the whole thing was so traumatic.
Mm.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, so I remember going to a few different places for counseling, and then I relapsed again. So the thing, of course, in retrospect now, is that I didn't realize, like, the reason that I was so depressed was because of, you know, a lot of the trauma that an alcoholic and a drug addict brings to their own life. And I did not know how to crawl out of this hole of depression that I was in. So, Dad, do you remember any of that time?
Only the time when your mom had you in your room after you took that Tylenol PM.
Mm-hmm. But we didn't speak about it. So here is the thing, and this is why we're talking about it today. First of all, for many reasons. I wrote a book about it. Mental health is so important to talk about. Before we got on this Zoom today, I just told Mom, and I took Mom and Dad to breakfast, bribed them, asked them to do this, and this is why we're on Zoom today.
It always works.
It wasn't enough, Sharon.
Well, another
more.
coming, yes. So because I woke up thinking about how the families suffer so much when somebody's not just dies by suicide, but is suicidal, is suffering from depression and not knowing what to do. And right before we got on this, I read about a campaign manager for President Trump who attempted suicide, and he went to the hospital today or yesterday or whenever it was. But you know, it's so much, it's so constant. There's too many stories, you know, so we have to talk about these things if we're going to normalize anything surrounding mental health and depression and suicide prevention. So thank you, Mom and Dad, for having the courage to have this conversation today.
There's nothing we wouldn't do, Sharon, to help anybody else. And like before that happened, we didn't see the signs. We thought you were just getting over what you've been through. We felt leaving you alone would kind of make help you come back into your own. But we didn't know. We figured if we were just there, there at your beck and call, there to support you, there to love you, that was enough. But we didn't know what was going on in your mind at the time.
It's a big part of recovery too, to have the support of your family.
100%. So, of course, you wouldn't know what to do. And that's why we're talking about this, because how could you know when I wasn't telling you the truth? You know, most people that are thinking about ending their lives are not thinking about telling anybody. They want to keep it from you because they're embarrassed. They don't want you to try to stop them. You feel, well, I felt like there was no way out. There was no escape from what was happening to my brain because, as my mom and dad will tell you, I was a very happy child. I grew up in a very happy home. I went to a private school. I had all of the blessings that one would want. So how I could end up now in a place of depression and addiction and alcoholism is baffling to anybody, especially.
And that's how, sorry, Sharon, that's how we felt. How could this be happening to our Sharon? She knows how much we loved her. Everybody loved you, the whole family. You were like the special niece. I mean, we adored you. Your brothers adored you. And you were such a happy child. You woke up singing every morning to the point where your brother would say, Mom, you shut her up, because you were always so full of sunshine in the morning. So it was an awful shock.
Which is proof it can happen to anybody.
Anybody. So yeah, I mean, I think that's why it's so important that we have this conversation, because there were no warning signs. And for me, because I can only share my own experience, in that depression, I really and truly thought there was no other way. And so now it became an obsessive thought. So every day I was thinking about it and hiding that from everybody. So you can imagine, I mean, the torture of my own mind, but the unmanageability and the powerlessness that everybody felt around me to get me back to where I used to be. So I will tell you that there was one night, and I think that this was one of the catapults to making this attempt, is I had these friends that asked me what was wrong with me, you know, and if it wasn't for Oprah Winfrey changing, or maybe she's not the first one to say it, but instead of asking somebody what's wrong with them, asking them what happened to you is a better question, because I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't know why I was depressed. I didn't know why I couldn't think straight. I didn't know why I didn't want to get out of bed. I thought I had lost my mind, right? So, you know, then, you know, I picked up, I drank, and it got worse and worse and worse and worse. And now I come back home, I'm 21 years old, I'm back in my mom and dad's house. And again, we're not talking about it, which I'm not saying is right or wrong, because I had been traumatized. They were just grateful I was home. They were grateful I was alive. I was grateful I was alive. But well, actually, I wasn't grateful I was alive. Let me be honest with you. I had suicidal ideation the entire time until I met my dad's EAP counselor. So Dad, why don't you tell everybody about Ben?
Well, I worked in New York Hospital in New York City. And because of what you were going through, I went over to see if we could get some kind of assistance or some kind of help. And this gentleman was recommended to me. And I went over to see him myself and sat down with him and explained everything that was going on. And he recommended you come in to visit him. So that's when I set up the appointments to come in and see him the first day. And I believe the first day you were there, I think you were very impressed with him. Because I'm sure you felt that he could help you. And I felt that way after speaking to him beforehand. So as it turns out, you came to see him, I think it was once a week, right?
Yep, every Tuesday.
Right, and you used to come in with me and to work with me, but then after a while going with him, we could see the improvement in you Mom and I,
Mm.
to the point where you used to come in on your own, which was, you know, a big thing.
Big
Thing
huge.
for us
Mm.
to realize that you were coming in yourself,
Yeah.
meaning that you wanted and needed his help
Right.
because
So
you knew he was helping you.
was helping me. So I've said this a few times. Because of Suicide Prevention Month, I've been interviewed a few times, and a lot of people say, "What you ask me? What was it that Ben did for you? What was it that led you on the path to come out of this depression?" And Ben was the first one to ask me if I was having suicidal thoughts. So it was the end of isolation for me. It was verbalizing it, saying yes, and it was such a release because nobody wants to say those words. Nobody wants to ask anybody, are you thinking of ending your life? Are you thinking of suicide? And he asked me, which was very brave, but you know, I'm sure part of the role of being an EAP counselor or a therapist. And that was the beginning. And then, you know, he hooked me up with a psychiatrist, and I was put on 20 milligrams of Prozac, which wasn't the first time, right, Mom?
No, no. I was very unhappy with the first psychiatrist you saw. He put you on medication right away without any counseling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, then he explained that that wasn't his field.
Right.
So I said, well, why are you treating her if this is not your field? He had you on strong
There's a
medication.
big difference between psychiatry and counseling.
Counseling.
So I think that the thing that worked the best for me was the fact that I was sober. I had the support of my family. I had a therapist and I had a psychiatrist. They were all monitoring me and monitoring my progress. As my parents just said, me just getting on the Long Island Railroad and going in to see this therapist alone was a big deal.
It was a big deal for us. Absolutely. We saw that you were making great progress.
But worried about you until you got home.
Right. Yes. Because, you know, I
you are.
black out and move to a different state. So of course we're worried. But yeah, I remember, and in the beginning, you know, it was a lot of thinking about the Long Island Railroad and how I could put myself in front of it. And those suicidal thoughts were pretty constant in the beginning, but I stuck by, I hung in there, and I had all of that support around me. So the reason why I wanted to talk about it with you guys today is I know that you had your own help and you're very big fans of Family Anonymous. And I know that today, 26 years later, there's probably some things because it's a much more open conversation today. We have hashtags like Suicide Prevention Month, and people are talking about it more because there's been a lot of celebrities that have died, and there's been a lot of attention towards mental health during this pandemic. So I know that it would have been a little bit different, but what was the thing that helped you the most when I was going through my depression?
Well, Family Anonymous, number one. And just talking, it's funny, I had friends that I didn't know had issues. And then when they saw one friend in particular, I went to bed and I said, I'm not getting up anymore. I can't. So I pulled the covers and next the phone rang. It was a good friend of mine. And she said, come on, let's go. We're going out for coffee. I said, no, I don't feel like. She said, I'll be over in 5 minutes. She came, got out of bed, got dressed, and took me to a restaurant and told me about her situation, which I never knew, with her son. And I thought, people really need to start talking to anybody. There's so many people that are going through this with family and friends and relatives. And when your book came out and it went through the family, I had cousins that told me, you know, a son, a daughter, a brother, whatever. It's just all started coming out after your book. Mm-hmm. So it gave them permission to tell their stories and talk about their stories and give the book to their children or family or friends that are going through the same thing. It's went like wildfire through family and friends, the book. So you really started something, helping people just talk about it. And yes. I found that was the best thing, was to talk about it.
Well, people tend to keep these things, particularly in families, they tend to keep them to themselves because of whatever, embarrassment they might feel or whatever guilt they may feel. But the big thing is really is to, like Marie says, to talk about it. And for them to know that there are people out there that will help them.
Yeah, and it got to a point with me, if somebody said to me, "Oh, Marie, you look sad," or "Marie, what's wrong?" I started to tell them. And then it opened up the floodgates for everybody, gave them permission to talk about what was going on in their families. So I stopped saying, "I'm fine, I'm okay. No, there's nothing wrong." I stopped saying that. I started to say, "I'm worried about my daughter. We have issues with my daughter." It's amazing how many people said, "You too?"
Yeah. There's
So
a lot.
talk about it.
Yeah. So there's a ton of shame and a ton of stigma that is behind mental health and depression. And, it certainly wasn't the road that I thought I would be on today to be sitting in front of a camera and talking about it, having so much time in between those years of real torture that I'm never going to forget. Right. So even if I've said many times in my recovery group that I'm really not afraid as much of picking up a drink or a drug as I am about going back to a depression, because you really feel so incredibly hopeless. And if more people understood that there is hope and that they're not alone and that there are therapists and psychiatrists and psychologists and groups like NAMI and the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay and Celebrate Recovery and Family Anonymous and
Private counseling.
Private therapists, yes, the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I highly recommend therapy. I think you're a little off your rocker if you're not in therapy, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think being preventative about your mental health is way more important than your physical health, because you have nothing without your brain, from what I understand. And go on, Dad.
No, I think it's very important from your aspect is, to get the proper help, to get the proper counseling. And in Ben's case, you had gone to counselor before that.
Yes.
And she certainly wasn't any great help. She was good to talk to, but like I said, what's important is to get somebody
You feel comfortable with.
And the big thing with Ben went through this himself. Ben was a former addict himself, so he could talk about this, and he had a complete recovery for years and years. So he was in the position where he could help, and that's very important, is to get somebody who knows what they're talking about when they're trying to counsel somebody like you.
And it's you're right. You really have to identify with that person. And I think that I've learned so much just in talking to so many great therapists during the show, learning about the wounded healer, which is what Ben is. In fact, that identification process, that's why, 12-step recovery programs work so well, because we're all on the same page. We've all gone through the same thing. There's no judgment, there's no shame. It kind of needs to be the same, though, in the mental health field. Not kind of, it needs to be the same, because there's a tremendous amount of people that will watch this today that are suffering in silence. And I know, I have been there. I know how horrible it feels to not think that you're ever going to be able to open the blinds in your room again and feel that sunshine come in. But with the right help, there certainly is, there is hope. I also want to mention, because, I think that it's a shame that is not spoken about more. The only way, actually, I feel in my soul to break these barriers is to just talk about it more. If you have a friend or a family member that is suffering, we come from a very large Irish family. I wouldn't think you would disagree that talking about things like depression, sadness, alcoholism are welcomed. It's not how you grew up. So we have to shift generations of, keep that to yourself. Don't let the neighbors know. Don't tell anybody your problems. But you can't actually heal unless you
face the truth.
And especially the parents, they feel so much guilt. I mean, you blame each other. What did you do? What did I do? What did we do? Did we do this wrong? Did we do? And then you learn from speaking to counselors and group therapy and everything, that it's not your fault. If you know you've done everything under the sun to love your child and be the best parent you could, it's not your fault.
Yes, and that's why Family Anonymous is very important for the parents or the people who are hurting over the child. Because, like I say, what we learned in Family Anonymous was, because I used to travel in every day to the city on the Long Island Railroad, and I used to meet, people on the train every morning, coming home, going there. And when I went to Family Anonymous, you think in your daily travels that, everybody has, that doesn't have my troubles, my worries. And then when when we went to a local Family Anonymous, I would have to say, I saw about 6, 7 people, parents, who were there having the same problem, but I never dreamed seeing them on the train that they were in the same situation as we were.
They were shocked to see us. I remember the first night we walked in, Marlon Keon was there. Remember Marlon Keon? Used to babysit for Patrick. And she comes right across the room to me and she says, "Marie, Paul?" I said, "No." Sharon, she couldn't believe, she was stunned. Never in a million years.
Our little saint.
Our little beast.
I still am a saint.
Yes. So it's great, Family Anonymous. Couldn't recommend it more.
Yes, and we learned a lot from them, and they learned a lot from us, because when you talk about it, and as you said, you have to talk about it. You can't hide it. You can't keep it a secret. You have to talk. You have to seek help, and that's what the most important thing for people that are going through it, like you did, is to know that there is help out there.
And they're not alone.
You can get the help. And like I say, in your case, once you started talking to Ben, and like I said, you had spoken to somebody before that, but she just hadn't experienced what Ben did. And he was able to relate to you, you were able to relate to him. And as I said earlier, because of the fact that we saw you going in yourself, on your own, into New York every day, every week, that we knew you were getting the right help.
It was helping.
Totally. And so there's a lot more men than women that suffer in silence. We tend to have a great gift of gab. There's a lot of machismo, and I'm not going to tell anybody that I'm struggling, and they suffer in silence. And more men are known to die by suicide than women, because of how they were brought up and how they were raised, and all of the shame that surrounds talking about our feelings. So if you today are suffering, we hope that you will reach out, you will tell somebody, you will ask for help. I'll have all of the information for everybody about the local places here in Tampa Bay to connect to, but you are not alone, and there is hope. We hope that the families too that have lost a loved one by suicide, that they hear what my parents are saying, that I've had to tell them 800 different times. It had nothing to do with either one of them. It had nothing to do with my brothers. It had nothing to do with where I grew up, and everything to do about the trauma that was inflicted myself, and the sadness that I felt, and this brain of mine that needed to get some help and to talk about it. If we can't keep pushing it down, it's going to come out somehow.
Yeah.
What about you having to watch your younger brother?
What about him? What about
Remember
that?
You said that?
That was true.
Remember you said that?
I used to tell when I went to my second rehab, everybody, there was a relapse prevention group. My parents got to come, and I told everybody that the reason I drank was because I had to babysit my younger brother.
Terrible.
We're good at making excuses and being manipulative. That is for sure. Lying
Yep.
territory. But it is an illness, everybody. So it's time You know, we're in 2020, we're in a national, international pandemic or racial unrest, you know, politics flying, mental health crisis is here to stay until we all start normalizing this conversation. Hence why I wanted to have Mom and Dad on. Dad, you look like you have something else to say.
There was one thing you mentioned yourself about men and, you know, them not facing facts and, you know, keeping things in
Yes.
because they think it's a weakness
Mhm.
to go look for help, but it's not a weakness. It's something when you feel like that, that's when you need the help. That's when you need to talk to people.
And also too, I think men don't say anything because they feel they have to be strong for the wife and the children. I remember one Sunday, I'll never forget it. It was a bad day and I was bawling my head off. And your dad was trying to comfort me. And I said to him, why aren't you crying? You love her just as much as I do. Why don't you cry? Get it out of you too. You have to cry. And he did. He started to cry. He never stopped after that. Movies, sad stories.
Big
Floodgates.
cry.
And it's healthy. It's so healthy.
You have to release it.
You have to release it to each other.
That's right.
And that's what we did.
Cry it out. You guys want to cry with me now together?
Well, we're crying now with happiness.
Yes, we're lucky, very lucky.
We're very blessed. And we want everybody to know out there, if you've lost somebody, I hope that you are getting the help that you need today. And I hope to God you don't blame it on yourself.
No, but
Yeah.
Sharon, what's great about you,
Whoa, tell me. Let me turn up the volume.
what's great about you is the fact that you're living proof. You're the living proof that people can get help and people can recover and people can get rid of all those things that that are negative in your life.
Yeah, and parents can get rid of the guilt by going to family counseling or going to Family Anonymous. And it's a great support group because you get everybody's phone numbers. It's like a chain of phone numbers. And if you have an issue, all you have to do is make a phone call and you're talking to somebody that's going through the same thing you are. So there's nothing held back.
Yes.
You know, you get it all out and they console you and then you do it to the next one. So it's a great support group.
Not only that, but it's an alien thing to parents, especially with the love of a child. It's an alien thing to have. But when you go to these meetings, you think you're the only one in the world that is going through this.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go to these meetings and you think things are bad for you, when you listen to some of the stories that other parents are going through and other people are going through,
And their doctors.
you realize that, you know, this is good therapy.
Yeah.
And this is what makes you get help yourself to deal with it.
And people from all walks of life, in the medical field, lawyers, doctors, every facet of life, you meet people that are, any human being that has children and vice versa, they're all going through the same thing. Money doesn't help. Talking about it helps.
Yes.
And
It's
loading it.
But I must say one thing.
going to be tough. This is like the Irish goodbye, everybody. Go on, Dad.
Yeah, but I must say one thing. When you get help, when you seek help, and when your parents are seeking help, get the help of somebody who knows what they're talking about, who has experienced it, not somebody that read it in a book. You have to have somebody that genuinely knows what they're talking about.
And relate. Mm-hmm.
And can relate, exactly. Because otherwise, it's a waste of time.
Okay. Well, that is one strong opinion, and we will leave it at that. Sound good? I did want to say that, now I've forgotten because, geez, I didn't think I'd be able to wrap this up. Something really good though. Oh, you guys are living proof too that you could make it through and stay married as you are coming up on your 52nd.
Oh, we're getting a divorce next year.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for sticking around to help me get through what I had to do.
Yeah, 52 years this year.
Yeah. And that, you know, that came with you guys getting the help that you needed to take care
Oh,
of
absolutely.
Family Anonymous, separate from the help of worrying about me. You had to let me go and get that help. So thank you so much for joining us today. We
Thank you
appreciate
for having us.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you. Bye-bye, everybody.
God bless.
God bless you. I love you.
Bye. Get help, everybody.
Get help. So don't forget, if you mention that you have seen the show or listened to the podcast, Thai Technology, 3 months for free.